Professor Dr. Löbler, thank you very much for joining us. I have a couple of questions regarding your presentation. And first off, I'd like to ask you the question, what creates value in consumption?
Well, if we think about value creation and what makes things valuable for people, I think we have to think about the service these products or service render. If you take, for example, a coffee machine.
Yes.
Or, the coffee machine in itself has no value at all.
Without
the coffee and without the ability to prepare the coffee with the coffee machine.
Yes.
So we need the coffee machine, we need the water, and we need the coffee. And then together with that we can create the coffee, we can produce a coffee. And even that coffee has no value unless we drink it. So the change we feel with the coffee, that creates a value. So that is some kind of transformation in us which the coffee creates, and that transformation creates a value. So it is a service of the transforming of the coffee which creates a value in us. And I think that is true for all kind of consumption. It's not just getting rid of the thing, but it's a transformation during the consumption which happens, which creates the value.
Okay, so it's transfer of all these different components put together to create this value. Now, just to look in terms of value, do you think SMEs, what can SMEs do to improve the value of use versus the typical economic value of exchange?
First of all, I think any kind of company should try to understand the driving forces for creating value, which means what happens with the consumer during the consumption process, not what happens to customer in just buying something. So what happens during the use, during the consuming process, the use can be a very long process. And even talking about a product I have just bought can be a part of consumption in that sense, because it's created by the product, but it's some kind of use. If we talk about my Porsche, then it is a use of the Porsche in our conversation. Okay. So that also is a kind of use.
The use is giving you status.
Yeah, exactly. But I have to use the Porsche, at least if I use it only in the terms, in words. But I think so we have to extend the idea of usage very much, and then we have to understand what this usage do with me. If I can talk about my Porsche, that makes me feel wonderful, wow, that brings value. But if you don't feel good, you may stop the relationship we have. Okay. So it's co-created value. We co-create the value of my Porsche, and that is a different understanding of value in use. It's not just driving the Porsche. Well, we could add driving together the Porsche, could also add value. But even this little example shows that the value in use is a broader, very broader concept. And it's also depending on the context.
Absolutely.
With whom do I talk about my Porsche?
If you talk about your Porsche with somebody who has no idea what a Porsche is, obviously that value has been lost. So
exactly.
Very context specific. Now that we've explored a little bit, how is this focused specifically to SMEs? How can they create this value of use in terms of their production, in terms of how they socially affect the consumer, in terms of their production chains, and thereby the transfer?
I think these SMEs have one big advantage compared to big companies. It is they are much closer to the customers.
This intimate relationship.
And in any kind of terms, they are closer in time and space, and that means that they are better able to understand the customer, to understand these use processes, these transforming processes. If you look at the hidden champions, for examples, you figure out that they really understand what customer create, what kind of value customer create with their products. And that is, I think, what these companies really understand. And even the CEOs of these companies understand that. And that is different to big companies, where the CEOs have sometimes no understanding of their customers.
They're very distant from them. Okay, so this is one of their great advantages. Moving a little bit more towards the SMEs and their role in fighting poverty, what do you think is their potential for fighting poverty in the global south?
Well, if people have ideas, and if people have ideas to serve each other, we have to understand that the division of labor means to serve each other. We don't live from our enterprise, but we live from serving others.
Yeah.
So service is exchanged for service in that sense, and if we create this kind of organizing service for others, it's creating a small or medium-sized company already.
Yeah.
And to understand that means to embed it in a culture, in a subculture, in an area where you live, and do it that way, how the people like it there. It's not just to take an American or German or UK example and to transform it or to transfer it to somewhere else. It means to transform the idea of offering service for service and to create an exchange and a transfer with a transformation.
In a context-specific.
In a context-specific way, yeah, exactly.
Great. Well, in which case, so we can see how they can play an important role. And maybe in poverty, in this sense, doesn't necessarily mean in monetary terms, but can also be socially enriching.
Well, money is only some kind of
symbolic.
Symbolic, yeah, more than symbolic. It helps to exchange, but then after the exchange, there must happen something. You cannot eat money. You cannot. Money doesn't help to transform you. Doesn't help to go through this value creation process. But money gives you all the resources which you can integrate to create value.
To buy the experience that transforms. Okay, so seeing that we've touched on several different subjects, I'd like to ask just one final question.
So give me a second to add one point which I think is important. Money is the medium for exchange.
Yes.
But money is not the medium for change or for transformation.
Absolutely, because you mentioned that it was just the means of getting that good. So it's the means of buying the Porsche, but the experience of then enjoying it is then that's the process of transformation.
Yeah.
Indeed, which is a very interesting concept. And finally, just to round off, I wanted to ask, what is your view on SEPT program as a whole?
Well, the SEPT program is, what I like very much of the SEPT program is that it brings people together from different parts of the world and that we can learn from our diverse experience. And we only can, from my understanding, learning from each other is the best way to co-create value, so to say.
I was just about to say transformative value.
Exactly, and if we understand that, we see how important it is that we are different and that we have different cultures in the world, because if we wouldn't have that, we couldn't learn from each other.
Homogeneity.
Yeah, exactly. It's diversity which creates value.
Absolutely. And innovation through that.
And therefore I like the SEPT program. I'm always inspired by the students in the program, and I love to learn with them together.
Great, well thank you very much for your time, and best of luck for the rest of your day.
Good. Thank you.